The imperial station hummed underfoot as thousands of beings moved along its vast corridors and bustling plazas. Alex Reyes was on a school trip from Earth to witness one of the galaxy's most prestigious events, Empress Kira'seth paying homage to her people in public. But for him, it felt like just another day stuck with the overly chaperoned group, their tight itinerary leaving little room for exploration. Alex, his friend, Jamie called out across a crowded plaza filled with tourists and local citizens from nearby star systems. Get over here. But Alex's attention was drawn elsewhere, towards the grand imperial parade route, where dignitaries in elaborate attire moved through throngs of admirers who cheered them on with cheers and applause. "Aw man," he grumbled softly to himself as the crowd swelled around him like a tidal wave. "I can't believe they dragged us all this way just for some boring political stuff." Suddenly, from behind Alex came an urgent murmur that quickened his steps despite his initial reluctance. The murmuring grew into gasps and then shrieks of alarm. People parted to make room for the spectacle unfolding ahead. Empress Kira'seth was making her public appearance amidst the grandeur of Cytherian architecture. Stalwart columns, sweeping arches painted in dazzling colors from iridescent paint jobs unique only to Cytherians. She stood tall at a podium beneath an arched canopy glowing with royal insignias and jewels that sparkled like stars under artificial light. "Empress!" someone shouted as Kira'seth began waving slowly, but suddenly doubled over, clutching her pregnant belly, in pain visible even from Alex's distance of about 20 meters away. The crowd around the platform froze. Guards were too far for immediate help. Everyone seemed paralyzed by shock and disbelief. "Come on," whispered Alex to himself, his mind snapping into action despite his fear. Pushed through the stunned crowd toward her without really thinking it over first. Reaching within arm's length, he saw she was falling forward from sheer agony rather than fainting coldly or being hit by an assailant. Acting purely, instinctively, and not considering just how many eyes were on him now, Alex dove into action. Hey, he grabbed her wrist as she started to collapse fully onto the ground. She looked up at him with wide golden irises filled with a mixture of fear and surprise that was quickly turning towards gratitude. Her sharp pain gasp echoed amidst the growing cacophony around them. "I've got you," he said firmly, trying not to panic himself while doing his best to hold her steady despite her size. He looked back at anyone nearby who could help, but found everyone else watching rather than moving forward to assist, perhaps too shocked or simply unwilling to overstep their place in the rigid Cytherian social hierarchy. "Someone get a medic!" Alex shouted as loud and clearly into the surrounding chaos as possible while pressing his hand against Kira'seth's stomach, where she clutched at it desperately. "She needs help now." Her breathing was erratic, shallow gulps mixed with painful moans escaping her lips. Her face turned pale, in contrast to her golden skin tone despite all the jewels and finery still attached like a regal armor to her figure. The Emperor himself stood high up on his viewing platform overlooking everything below him. He witnessed Alex's intervention as if through some divine providence, eyes narrowing with an unreadable expression shadowed beneath the arch of the balcony. Alex placed 2 fingers under Kira's chin and tilted back slightly to check for breathing. As her breath started to come in shorter bursts, alarm kicked in from his CPR training he'd received on Earth as part of a mandatory health course after one student nearly drowned during swim practice, but was saved thanks to quick thinking. "Okay," Alex said softly, now more focused and less flustered than when he first rushed over. "You're gonna be okay." He remembered the steps for abdominal thrusts in case something had obstructed her airway, or if it was a sudden pregnancy emergency causing distress instead of a heart attack or fainting spell. "Please stay with me," Alex pleaded, his voice rising slightly but remaining steady under pressure as he continued checking and trying to maintain circulation and breathing stability until medics could arrive on scene. The urgency in his tone demanded she listen. It was impossible for anyone watching not to feel the weight of what this moment held, life hanging by a thread. His hands moved deftly over her body, ensuring every step taken would bring 1 second closer to stable condition before professional medical help could take over. And while waiting, his eyes never left hers, maintaining contact as best he could despite everything else happening around them. Each breath she took was precious and fragile like glass under the weight of expectations. Medics arrived finally, after minutes that felt longer than an eternity. Alex didn't let go until they were in place to take over care with specialized equipment meant for Cytherian royalty, not merely humans or other species' needs. His relief washed over him as he realized how close it had come to being too late, but the Empress was now under professional hands. "I think she'll be fine," Alex whispered once medics took charge, his voice breaking slightly from a mix of adrenaline and sheer relief. He looked up again at where the Emperor stood above, knowing full well that gaze would not easily forget him or this moment when one boy's actions saved an empire from potential tragedy. As chaos slowly faded back into order with medical personnel ensuring Kira'seth received immediate care, Alex realized how much had just stepped into. He felt a strange mix of pride and fear, pride for acting without hesitation, but fear for what such action might mean now moving forward amidst galactic politics so far removed from his everyday life on Earth. Yet in the midst of everything, one thing was certain: Empress Kira'seth would live because Alex hadn't hesitated to help when others did, and that fact alone spoke volumes about who he truly was and what kind of impact a single person could make even across worlds and species boundaries. The medical bay was a sterile and imposing room filled with rows of advanced machines beeping rhythmically like an orchestra of life-saving devices. The air inside was crisp and cool from powerful ventilation systems designed to keep the environment free of contaminants that could endanger someone as important as Empress Kira'seth. Doctors in pristine white robes bustled around her, their movements synchronized yet frantic with urgency. Monitors flashed various reading, heart rate, oxygen levels, blood pressure, vital signs that needed constant monitoring and adjustments by expert hands. Alex stood nearby, his school uniform looking out of place amidst the clinical surroundings. He had been pushed to the side as soon as medics arrived, but couldn't leave her alone. "Please stay," Empress Kira'seth whispered weakly through a flurry of medical attention. Her voice was barely audible over the hum of machinery and clatter of equipment, yet it carried an undeniable strength in its request. Alex hesitated for only a moment before stepping forward again into the whirlwind of activity surrounding her. "He'll stay," he said firmly but gently to one doctor who tried pulling him back towards a waiting area outside. "She asked me to." The doctor paused mid-motion, looking between them with surprise at this human boy so adamant about staying by his side. "You're getting in their way here," the doctor argued softly yet resolutely. "Get yourself some water and let us do our job." "No," Alex persisted stubbornly despite knowing he was just one voice amidst many deciding her fate right now. "I have to be here for her." His words were simple, spoken from a place of pure instinct rather than calculated reason. For several long hours thereafter, The medical bay buzzed with activity while Empress Kira'seth lay in critical condition between life and death's threshold. Alex remained by her side throughout it all, his presence, not because he was meant to be there officially, but simply out of his own sense of responsibility towards someone who needed him. He held on to her hand tightly, squeezing reassuringly whenever medics worked around the baby's distressing heartbeat or when the Empress would drift in and out of consciousness. Her golden skin shone under harsh lights reflecting off metal surfaces everywhere he looked. Sweat from their struggle with an unpredictable condition dripped down her temple towards a small cut on his palm where needles had repeatedly punctured delicate flesh. "Alex," she murmured again, at one point when another round of treatments seemed particularly taxing on both mother and child within. He leaned close enough to hear the soft whisper, feeling immense pressure in those two syllables, even though he couldn't fully understand her language beyond a few phrases learned during his trip's cultural exchange sessions. "I'm here," Alex replied back with steady resolve while nodding at her reassuringly through every surge of medical intervention meant to stabilize them both. The room reeked heavily of antiseptic and faint traces of synthetic scents used for cleanliness, but amidst that sterile environment, there was a bond growing between these two strangers from entirely different worlds. Hours ticked by in agonizing slowness until finally, the most critical moments passed. One doctor stepped back, wiping sweat off his brow and announcing they had turned the corner. "Mother and child are stable," he declared to all gathered, but looked directly at Alex before adding quietly, "The boy deserves credit for not letting go." Alex exhaled deeply, feeling an immediate rush of relief wash over him, though fatigue settled quickly into bones already weary from adrenaline pumping through veins since first entering the Sci-Fi's situation hours ago. His eyes were puffy and red-rimmed by now, with exhaustion creeping up on all fronts, making it hard to keep them open despite needing every ounce left within. He stood there for several more minutes, just taking in what had transpired around him before finally wandering into an adjacent waiting room as doctors continued their work monitoring the Empress' vital signs through various machines hooked up from multiple angles. As he sank bonelessly down onto one of those uncomfortable chairs lining its walls, his entire body sagged with profound weariness. "Did you really save us?" a deep voice asked, suddenly breaking Alex's trance-like state as another man entered into the room and took seat opposite him in similar exhaustion, but also bearing an aura unlike anyone here before, a commanding presence that spoke volumes about who he truly was even without saying anything more than greeting. The Emperor of Cytheria, tall figure cloaked similarly, in regal robes trimmed with gold thread running down sleeves to cuffs matching golden hair framing face otherwise unreadable save for gaze now focused sharply on this human teenager sitting across from him. Alex blinked slowly, trying to process what he was seeing before nodding once more seriously towards his interlocutor, while voice croaked slightly under stress. "I think she'll be okay." "Thank you," the Emperor stated plainly, though tone carried weight of gratitude far beyond words alone could convey given stakes involved for entire galaxies' ruling family suddenly placed in critical danger. Alex managed small smile at those four simple syllables carrying more meaning than anything ever spoken before about him or his life back on Earth. He felt a strange mix of pride and fear wash over as realization set in how much had stepped into Tade, an ordinary high school kid saving an extraordinary alien empress, with implications reaching far beyond any singular moment here. But that wasn't what mattered most right now. Kira'seth would live, because Alex hadn't hesitated to help when others did, and that fact alone spoke volumes about who he truly was and the potential impact one person could make even across worlds and species boundaries, despite initial differences in appearance or language barriers. And the vast marble hall of the Cytherian imperial palace was as silent and cold as a tomb when Alex entered it from the medical ward where Empress Kira'seth lay stabilized after her near-fatal collapse. The heavy scent of synthetic scents used for cleanliness wafted through, but amidst that sterile environment, there was an unspoken tension in the air. Everyone knew they were treading on thin ice now. Alex's eyes darted nervously from one guard to another as he made his way down a long corridor leading away from the medical wing towards the throne room. He couldn't shake off the overwhelming sense of dread that clung to him like an unwanted shadow. Every step felt heavier than the last, and his heart pounded in response to each approaching moment. Alex Reyes, Thalkar's voice boomed behind him, cutting through the silence with a force that seemed almost physical. The sheer magnitude of the Emperor's presence sent shivers down Alex's spine as he turned around slowly, finding himself face to face with one of the most powerful beings in the galaxy. Thalkar stood at an impressive height, towering over even Cytherian nobles who lined both sides of the hall, their golden-skinned faces masked by expressions ranging from awe to dread. "Your Majesty," Alex managed through gritted teeth, trying his best not to betray how intimidated he felt standing so close to such overwhelming authority. The room seemed to shrink around them as Thalkar's gaze bore into him with piercing intensity that made it hard for Alex to look away, despite every instinct telling him otherwise. "Come," the Emperor commanded tersely, gesturing with a single sweep of his hand towards an ornate set of double doors positioned at the end of the hallway. Guards immediately flanked them on either side as Thalkar led Alex into what could only be described as a sanctum sanctorum throne room itself, where decisions that shaped entire galaxies were made. The moment they stepped inside, Alex was struck by the sheer grandeur and scale of it all. Towering columns carved from an unknown mineral shimmered under ambient light cast by hanging globes in every shade imaginable. The air hummed with some unidentifiable energy source, generating a faint but palpable buzz that ran through everything here. Walls covered in intricate tapestries depicting scenes from Cytherian history, each thread woven into place as testament to the Empire's enduring strength and resilience. Thalkar walked purposefully towards his throne, positioned at far end of chamber, under arched ceiling reaching up into darkness beyond. Guards parted like waves for them, while others snapped rigid attention behind a ceremonial honor guard arrayed in perfect formation on either side, their presence making Alex feel even smaller than before if possible. "Wait here," Thalkar said coldly once they neared the dais, but stopped short of his actual seat. He turned to face Alex, fully now blocking out any view back down hallway behind them completely. This throne room felt like a pressure cooker ready to burst at seams. Every second stretched agonizingly long as silence between them hung heavy with implications neither dared voice. Alex swallowed hard and stepped forward nervously, unsure what else he could do except comply, when Thalkar nodded towards the edge of dais nearby where several plush cushions were arranged. He perched tentatively on one while watching Emperor ascend steps slowly before finally settling into throne itself with quiet deliberation bordering upon majesty. Thalkar's robes billowed outward from around his legs as he crossed them elegantly over each other, resting elbows casually atop armrests encrusted in precious gems and metals gleaming under palace lights above. The emperor's golden hair fell loosely across shoulders, framed against backdrop of richly adorned tapestries, behind him adding to imposing image already cast by sheer physical presence alone. "Tell me what happened," Thalkar commanded quietly, but with authority that left no room for hesitation or evasion in response from anyone standing before him now. His voice rumbled low and deep inside chamber, carrying weight of gravity. Each word carried like stones dropped into still pond, sending out concentric waves rippling through water's surface. Alex took a breath to steady himself before beginning narrative haltingly, at first but gaining confidence as details flowed more freely. "I was just there on the tour with other students from Earth visiting station for study trip when Empress collapsed right in front of everyone. I could see panic start setting in among crowd. Saw guards hesitate, unsure what to do next." "Continue," Thalkar pressed, gently but firmly, encouraging Alex onward despite knowing story already heading towards climax, none needed prompting to reach. Alex nodded and continued more steadily now. "I just couldn't stand by while people hesitated, so I ran over, did whatever anyone else would have done if they'd acted instead of waiting for something uncertain." Thalkar's eyes narrowed slightly at that, though any disapproval vanished quickly under mask of intense concentration as he considered words carefully before speaking again. "And you saved my wife and child where trained guards failed to act because protocol left them unsure." Alex nodded once more, looking down briefly, but meeting Emperor's gaze squarely, after clearing throat nervously. "I guess I just didn't have time for those kinds of worries. Or maybe wasn't thinking about anything else besides getting her help." Thalkar's expression softened ever so slightly at that honest admission from youth before him. It resonated deeply within ancient chambers around them, filled with centuries' worth stories told and retold across generations, defining legacy. Cytherian empire built upon strength, born of compassion rather than brute force alone. Emperor leaned forward a bit, fixing Alex with steady gaze. "You did what anyone should have done in those moments, but often enough, people don't." "Did you need me to?" Alex asked hesitantly, after brief silence settled between them once more, but far less heavy this time around compared last few minutes spent waiting apprehensively outside throne room proper. Thalkar looked away contemplatively towards ceiling above, before turning back sharply with renewed focus on boy sitting before him. "No, but that doesn't change what you did." He paused thoughtfully, seeming to consider carefully next words chosen deliberately to convey utmost sincerity in message delivered, even if tone remained formal and dignified, as expected from one so high placed within hierarchy of Cytherian empire. "Your actions today, they saved us all," Thalkar stated plainly yet powerfully, enough that Alex felt every word sinking deep into bones where it would remain forever indelibly marked there. "I owe you a great debt for stepping forward when others did not." Alex blinked in surprise, unsure how to react appropriately to such profound gratitude given him by someone so immensely powerful within galactic context he barely understood even existed until today. I just thought she needed help." A long moment passed as weight of those simple words hung heavy between them, before Thalkar nodded slowly with evident respect in his eyes towards teenager sitting opposite across gilded day is separating emperor from visitors. "Yes," the ruler confirmed quietly yet definitively. "And you helped." Thalkar leaned back slightly now, crossing arms over broad chest, as he looked down at Alex seriously, but without any trace of malice or judgment. "Name your reward." Alex's mind raced momentarily, trying to come up with something that would be appropriate. Given gravity situation, while also not expecting anything in return beyond acknowledgement his actions mattered. He thought about asking for nothing, feeling it strange enough being here, let alone having Emperor indebted to him somehow, but then another possibility arose he hadn't yet considered fully until now. Could you help me understand this place better?" Alex asked hesitantly, after collecting thoughts into coherent sentence. "I mean, today was pretty overwhelming and confusing at times, trying figure everything out, even basic stuff." Thalkar's lips curved slightly upward in rare smile that softened edges of otherwise stern visage before him. "Certainly," the Emperor agreed immediately, nodding his consent readily enough despite evident shock many would feel receiving such request as repayment for life debt owed. "There is much to learn here beyond immediate surface impressions." "Thank you," Alex said sincerely, after a moment's pause, where he could scarcely believe what had transpired over course recent events leading him this far from ordinary high school day into something truly extraordinary yet humbling. Thalkar inclined head graciously before rising smoothly off throne and making motions towards dismissing audience back down hallways as formalities surrounding imperial meeting came to an abrupt end amidst mutual understanding reached between two strangers now connected in ways neither had anticipated when morning dawned this day. But as Alex followed Emperor's guards out of vast throne room, mind still reeling from everything that happened within past few hours under palace roof, senses sharp and alert, taking note every detail a long way, despite initial exhaustion threatening to pull him back into haze, head tried pushing against all afternoon. Now both new future paths lay ahead for a young human teen who'd saved alien Empress more than once already. Indeed, the vast throne room of the Cytherian Empire was a breathtaking display of grandeur and power, its high ceilings adorned with intricate frescoes depicting scenes from galactic history, while columns lined the perimeter like sentinels guarding their sovereign's domain. The air inside felt heavy with anticipation as Alex stood awkwardly in his school uniform among rows of ornate seating filled by nobles dressed in flowing robes of various colors and styles, each marking their status within the intricate web of Cytherian society. A low murmur rippled through the crowd when Thalkar entered from behind a pair of massive doors guarded by two imposing guards. His arrival was marked with a hush, signaling the start of an official audience between emperor and subjects. The room's atmosphere shifted as nobles straightened their backs and adjusted their garments in preparation for what they all knew would be one of the most significant moments in recent galactic history. Thalkar moved to his throne, crafted from gold and jewels that glittered under the soft, golden lights hanging from the ceiling, and settled with a regal grace. The Emperor's eyes swept across the gathered crowd before landing on Alex. "We are here today not only because of an urgent matter, but also in recognition of recent events," Thalkar declared loudly enough to ensure every ear was attuned. The murmurs intensified as whispers spread through the audience, their curiosity about what had transpired earlier that day growing palpable with each passing moment. Empress Kira'seth entered gracefully behind her husband, moving with a deliberate slowness that hinted at both her pregnancy and the significance of this gathering. She moved to stand beside him on the dais, her golden skin glowing softly under the palace lights. "Empress," Thalkar began formally, as he gestured toward Alex, "would you like to address our esteemed guests?" Kira'seth nodded gently in acknowledgement before turning slightly towards Alex with a warm smile. "Alex Reyes, this is an honor we never anticipated," she said softly, but clearly enough for those nearest to hear. The crowd fell silent again, their attention now fully fixed on the young human. "I am deeply grateful for your assistance today," Kira'seth continued, her voice carrying weight of sincerity and gratitude that echoed through every chamber. "Your bravery did not go unnoticed." Alex felt a flush rise up his neck as he shifted uncomfortably in his seat under the collective gaze of hundreds around him. Had never imagined such an audience would be held solely for him, a mere high school student from Earth. "Please, let us move forward to the main business at hand," Thalkar stated formally once more, directing attention back toward himself and away from Alex's discomfort. "As your emperor," he began loudly, his voice clear despite his commanding presence that seemed to command silence effortlessly across all present, "I am prepared to offer anything in exchange for assistance rendered." A ripple of excitement ran through the crowd as whispers grew louder again, everyone trying to imagine what reward could possibly befit someone who had just saved their empress and potentially avoided a crisis. Alex swallowed hard. His mind raced with thoughts of how absurdly out of place he felt amidst such pomp and circumstance. He fidgeted in his seat, drawing concerned glances from several nearby nobles, before one of them leaned forward slightly to murmur something reassuring but also enigmatic into Alex's ear. "Your Majesty," a noblewoman named Mirathelva spoke up, stepping forward with careful formality. "Is there perhaps an opportunity for young Mr. Reyes here to learn more about our empire's ways and customs? A mentorship program could prove beneficial." Thalkar considered this suggestion silently before nodding slowly. "Indeed," he agreed finally, after a measured pause. His gaze returned directly back toward Alex, who now found himself under the watchful eyes of every noble present once again. "Name your reward," Thalkar repeated calmly but firmly, his voice cutting through any remaining murmurs instantly. Alex's heart pounded hard against his ribcage as he took a deep breath and prepared to speak. His mind raced with all sorts of potential responses. None seemed quite right or worthy enough given what had just transpired here today. He felt overwhelmed by the magnitude of this moment, unsure if speaking up would actually change anything, but knowing it was expected. "Can I say something first?" Alex's voice wavered slightly as he spoke to Thalkar directly across the vast space between them. Thalkar's eyes softened ever so subtly before nodding in silent agreement. "Proceed," he instructed gently, his tone almost paternal despite the formal setting around him. Alex took another steadying breath and stood up fully from where he'd been seated on a bench near Empress Kira'seth and Thalkar. The room seemed to hold its collective breath as every eye focused intently upon this awkward teenager who dared save their most revered leader. I just thought she needed help," Alex began again, his voice still shaky but now steady enough not to falter completely under pressure. "And you're all here because of it?" A murmur of surprise ran through the audience as many exchanged glances, clearly taken aback by both this admission and the audacity such a response carried. "And there was nothing else?" Thalkar's voice held an unusual warmth despite his imposing presence towering over Alex from behind the throne. "No request for wealth or titles?" Alex shook his head firmly yet politely, feeling slightly more confident now that had spoken so directly without expecting much return in exchange beyond being acknowledged here today. "Actually," Alex said slowly, after a moment of collecting thoughts, choosing each word carefully, as if constructing something fragile and precious amidst all this grandeur. Could you help me understand this place better?" Today was pretty overwhelming, sometimes trying to figure everything out, even basic stuff. Thalkar's lips curved ever so slightly into what Alex recognized as an encouraging smile that softened edges of otherwise stern visage before him. Certainly, the emperor agreed immediately, nodding his consent readily despite evident shock many would feel receiving such request. There is much to learn here beyond immediate surface impressions. Thank you, Alex said sincerely, after a moment's pause where he could scarcely believe what had transpired over course recent events leading this far from ordinary high school day into something truly extraordinary yet humbling. Thalcar inclined head gracefully before rising smoothly off throne and making motions towards dismissing audience back down hallways as formalities surrounding imperial meeting came to an abrupt end amidst mutual understanding reached between two strangers now connected in ways neither had anticipated when morning dawned this day. But as Alex followed Emperor's guards out of vast throne room, mind still reeling from everything that happened within past few hours under palace roof, senses sharp and alert, taking note every detail a long way, despite initial exhaustion threatening to pull him back into Hayes' head, tried pushing against all afternoon. Now both new future paths lay ahead for young human teen who'd saved alien empress more than once already. Indeed, the vast throne room of the imperial palace was a breathtaking sight, its towering ceiling adorned with intricate carvings that seemed to twirl and dance under the soft glow of floating lights. The polished floor gleamed beneath Alex's feet as he stood before Emperor Thalcar, surrounded by an array of dignitaries in their elaborate uniforms. "Sire," began one of the counselors at Thalcar's side, his voice tinged with caution, "surely we must consider what form of reward would be most fitting for our young hero." Thalcar's eyes flickered to Alex before returning them back to the room at large, a slight nod acknowledging the inquiry without dismissing it outright. Alex took another deep breath and stepped forward slightly, as if pulling on courage by its very thread. He felt eyes burning into him from all sides, but didn't let that distract from his determination. "Your Majesty," he began firmly yet respectfully, addressing Thalcar directly despite feeling completely out of place among such grandeur. "I don't want money or titles." A murmur rippled through the crowd at this unexpected statement. The emperor's gaze sharpened momentarily before softening again, as if weighing Alex's words carefully against centuries-old customs and expectations he'd grown accustomed to balancing daily. "Please allow me," continued Alex, his voice steady now despite visible nerves trembling just beneath surface calm. From Earth or planet is so far behind in technology compared to yours. But we have something you might not: schools that teach kids like me how to do CPR. His hand reached up absent-mindedly towards the collar of his school uniform, fingers curling around it almost protectively as he spoke. "Why am I here then?" Alex asked rhetorically to no one in particular but aiming directly at heart of matter anyway. "Because if someone else had known what to do that day, if any Cytherian citizen could have been trained properly, they might have helped Empress Kira'seth before it was too late." A hush fell over the room as Alex's words resonated deeply within halls of power, where such ideas rarely took root so readily without years of political maneuvering. "But my reward?" He swallowed hard against rising tension, but pressed on regardless, voice growing stronger with every word uttered towards truth rather than personal gain. "Build schools, teach everyone how to save lives when they see someone in trouble, not just nobles or those who already know what's right." Thalcar's expression remained inscrutable as he listened intently, his gaze sweeping across courtiers assembled around throne room, but settling back on Alex whenever murmurs threatened to overshadow direct connection between them. "If one of your people had been there," Alex paused briefly, eyes glazing slightly, at memory flashing through mine unbidden. Wouldn't they have acted faster? What if next time it's not me who happens by? Silence hung heavily in air, now punctuated only faintly shifting sounds from far corners where attendants waited anxiously for outcome of this unforeseen confrontation. And then, as abruptly as storm clouds rolling over clear sky, at dusk Emperor himself rose slowly to his full towering height behind throne, his movements deliberate and controlled yet carrying unmistakable gravity beyond mere physical presence projected through sheer force of will, commanding room's attention absolutely. "Alex Reyes," began Thalkar in measured tones that still somehow reverberated powerfully throughout space enclosed within palace walls, "you have spoken with wisdom beyond your years today." Alex blinked rapidly once more before swallowing thick lump forming at back throat. He wasn't sure what he'd expected exactly, but this certainly hadn't been part of it. "Your suggestions," Thalkar continued thoughtfully, now addressing not just Alex himself, but everyone present gathered around in awe-striking silence, "offer a new perspective on how we may better serve all citizens within our galactic realm regardless of status or privilege." An audible gasp went up from audience as this pronouncement settled over proceedings like thick velvet curtain dropping decisively across stage set. And so Thalkar's voice now carried unmistakable authority, even through subtle softening edge to timbre. "Shall we begin implementing such measures forthwith?" He looked directly at Alex once more before glancing outward again towards counselors and advisors assembled about him. The Emperor's question hung in air like a gauntlet thrown down. No one dared immediately refute or challenge it despite its monumental implications. Alex felt eyes of hundreds upon him, but managed to nod resolutely back at Thalkar, feeling suddenly small yet impossibly large all at once amidst this swirling nexus of politics and power. "I thank you," he whispered finally, after several heartbeats stretching into eternity, barely audible above ambient hums within vast throne room. Thalkar inclined head gracefully before rising smoothly off throne and making motions towards dismissing audience back down hallways as formalities surrounding imperial meeting came to an abrupt end amidst mutual understanding reached between two strangers now connected in ways neither had anticipated when morning dawned this day. But as Alex followed Emperor's guards out of vast throne room, mind still reeling from everything that happened within past few hours under palace roof, senses sharp and alert, taking note every detail a long way despite initial exhaustion threatening to pull him back into haze, head tried pushing against all afternoon. Now both new future paths lay ahead for young human teen who'd saved alien Empress Morthaw. And once already, the Emperor is very still. Thalkar looked at Alex for a long moment, his eyes reflecting an understanding that was both terrifying and humbling to the young human teenager standing before him. The air seemed to hold its breath as they stared into each other's eyes across the vast throne room of the imperial palace on Cytheria Roman 4. Finally, Thalkar stood up slowly, rising from his ornate golden throne. His movements were deliberate yet graceful, carrying an aura that commanded respect and awe from everyone present in the hall. "This child, this human child, asks not for wealth," he began softly but clearly, as if speaking directly to the hearts of every person there, "not for power." Thalkar paused, allowing his words to sink deep into each individual's soul before continuing. His voice had a profound resonance that echoed off the marble walls and intricate tapestries adorning the palace. "He asks me to save others," Thalkar said emphatically, now addressing not just Alex, but everyone in attendance. Are we less than this human teenager? The question hung heavily over the room, drawing every gaze back towards Alex, who stood frozen with astonishment. He hadn't expected such a response from the Emperor himself, and was at a loss for words. Thalkar continued his declaration without hesitation, now fully addressing all present. His voice carried an unyielding authority, yet also conveyed genuine respect directed specifically toward the young human before him. And so, let this be our proclamation, Thalkar stated firmly, with eyes gleaming intensely under palace lights reflecting off golden skin framed by elaborate royal robes. Medical training shall henceforth become mandatory for every citizen across Etherian territories and beyond. The air filled instantly with murmurs of surprise and excitement as the far-reaching implications of these words began to sink in among gathered counselors, nobles, and other distinguished guests present. Schools dedicated towards such medical education will be established, Thalkar added, continuing his list of announcements, which would undoubtedly change the fabric of galactic society forever. In honor of Alex Reyes. A hushed awe rippled through audience members, now fully understanding what was being proposed by their emperor with this extraordinary decision. Furthermore, an emergency response protocol called the Reyes Protocol shall be developed and implemented galaxy-wide, Thalkar stated decisively, ending his speech while leaving no room for doubt regarding intent. Its purpose to ensure quick medical assistance is available universally. Alex was overwhelmed at being part of such a monumental change, despite initially merely wanting to help when witnessing Empress Kira'seth collapsing in front of him on that fateful day. "I thank you," he managed to whisper finally, after several heartbeats stretching into eternity, barely audible above ambient hums within vast throne room. His voice carried more gratitude than could ever be expressed through mere words. Thalkar inclined his head gracefully before rising smoothly off throne, making motions towards dismissing audience back down hallways as formalities surrounding imperial meeting came to an abrupt end, amidst mutual understanding reached between two strangers now connected in ways neither had anticipated when morning dawned this day. As Alex followed guards out of vast throne room, minds still reeling from everything that happened within past few hours, under palace roof, senses sharp and alert, taking note every detail a long way, despite initial exhaustion threatening to pull him back into Hayes' head, tried pushing against all afternoon. Now both new future paths lay ahead for young human teen who'd saved alien Empress more than once already. The golden-skinned Empress appeared then, still visibly weak, but standing with remarkable dignity. She made her way over towards Alex, her movements graceful despite the pregnancy that was clearly visible under flowing robes she wore. She stopped in front of him, and without a word embraced him gently yet firmly, conveying immense gratitude beyond any mere words could convey. "You saved 2 lives," Empress Kira'seth said softly, but powerfully, through their embrace still lingering between them after several heartbeats filled with mutual respect and admiration for one another's actions. Alex felt warmth spread throughout his body as he returned the gesture, feeling small yet somehow impossibly large all at once amidst this swirling nexus of politics and power. "I just did what anyone should do," Alex responded honestly yet humbly, still reeling from implications set forth by recent announcements regarding medical training for everyone. Empress Kira'seth released him with a gentle nod before stepping back slightly, allowing room around them while eyes remained fixed on Thalkar, waiting for final instructions as per protocol governing imperial proceedings here within palace confines. The Emperor, standing tall, yet regally beside his pregnant wife, interjected, now addressing both Alex and gathered crowd still assembled, but ready to disperse shortly after announcement period had concluded officially. "No," he corrected gently with clear authority resonating clearly against walls of Grand Hall. "You did what a hero does." He paused briefly, allowing weight of those simple words to settle before continuing softly yet powerfully into silence that now enveloped space around them all present within palace confines. "Without knowing you were one. And the kid who just wanted to help changed an empire because he asked for others instead of himself. That's the human way." The room remained hushed and still as Thalkar's final words lingered in the air, leaving everyone with a sense of profound change that was about to unfold across countless worlds within their galaxy.